What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with a one quarterback rookie mock draft. I know we tend to do a lot of superflex content on this channel because that's mainly what we play in, but you guys have been asking for this, so we're finally going to deliver, and we're going to do a one quarterback rookie mock draft. Yesterday, you would have seen the video of us doing a superflex rookie mock draft with the Discord members. Today, we're just going to go through with just me and Danny so we can get more in depth on the picks and talk about the overall strategy of a one quarterback league without kind of like a time limit, just because we haven't talked about this format very much. And I know there's a lot of you out there that still do play in one quarterback leagues.
Yeah, for sure. Again, the people that are playing in one quarterback leagues watch us every single video. We talk about these rookie mock drafts, talk about our rookie rankings in terms of tiers. They wonder, well, how does the quarterback value change when I go from a superflex to one quarterback? Because again, obviously in a superflex, there's going to be three quarterbacks in that top four tier. In a one quarterback league, where does their value kind of fall down? Because you're not going to take them that high. So today we're just kind of going to go through kind of slotting quarterbacks as we will based off the tiers in terms of how they translate to a one quarterback, if that makes sense. And yeah, just super hyped to actually get you guys a different type of content on the channel because we've just exclusively been talking about Superflex for possibly the last 2 months now. Let's give you a refresher.
Yep. So if you guys do enjoy this video at any point, encourage you to like the video, comment any of your thoughts down below. Any questions you have, comment the word anything, helps us out all the same. And subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you guys are new to the channel, maybe you're catching up on some of the content we put out this week and you're like, oh, those FSC boys really know their stuff. Hit the subscribe button. It's totally free. And I promise you, we will help you win some championships. So we're going to hit the intro and then we're going to get right into this. All right, so as we talked about, the Superflex and the one quarterback landscape is a lot different in terms of where you want to be looking with the first pick and the top of the draft, because in a Superflex league, we typically be talking about Trey Lance, we'd be talking about Trevor Lawrence, potentially Justin Fields, if that's who you're leaning at the top of the draft, but we're not going to be talking about those guys for a little bit of time here in a one quarterback format, because as we all know, in one quarterback leagues, the quarterback position is so deep. And in a dynasty league, you can just basically put a lot of guys on your roster and stream 3 or 4 guys throughout the season in that one spot.
Yeah, 100%. The quarterback position in a one quarterback league is really devalued in comparison. Because if you think about it, from a super flex standpoint, let's just look at it league wide. 24 quarterbacks on average are going to be starting every week unless someone's severely lacking at the position. They're throwing in a running back or receiver. But typically you'll see 24 quarterbacks starting each week. And each team will typically have at least one quarterback on their bench. If you guys do the math, there are 32 teams in the NFL and 36 quarterbacks will be owned on those 12 teams. So mathematically, there's a race to make sure you get at least a starting caliber player at the quarterback position. Whereas in a one quarterback league, you can go about a season having 1 or 2 quarterbacks, and it's not really going to affect the pool because there's still going to be starting talent available on the waiver wire or deep on your bench per week. So it's not necessarily a priority in comparison to the Superflex format.
Yeah, and in a Superflex league too, if a starting quarterback becomes available on the waiver wire, like people will drop freaking 40, 50% of their fab budgets on Nate Peterman, like starting game, just because he's a starting quarterback for a couple of weeks. Like Jake Luton probably went for $60 of fab budget on your dynasty rosters in a Superflex league. So yeah, the position's very scarce, which scarcity creates value. So that's basically what happens with the quarterbacks in a Superflex league. But this is a one quarterback league. Let's talk about the 101. He would be my 101. He'd be your 101. Najee Harris, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, is we both agree is the safest projection in terms of volume, in terms of a talent. Obviously, he's capable as a runner, as a receiver. He's just a tremendous talent altogether, and he landed in the most ideal situation for him from a volume perspective. He's going to see the volume that a guy like Le'Veon Bell saw. We know that the Pittsburgh Steelers coaching staff is definitely equipped to use a running back like him and a workhorse running back they've used really in Mike Tomlin's entire tenure. They're throwing James Conner workhorse volume. They're throwing D'Angelo Williams workhorse volume. They like one running back. That's how they operate, and this is a damn good one that they got.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we talked about it in the rankings video. Le'Veon Bell in his prime with the Steelers was averaging at least 70, 75% of the total opportunities in a backfield, We saw even James Conner, 2018, 286 opportunities in 13 games, 22 per game. If Naji Harris is even anywhere close to that level of volume, we saw James Robinson with undrafted draft capital with a much worse situation be an RB1 last year on basically the type of volume we should expect from Naji Harris. Even if his efficiency isn't that great, he's going to be a top 10 running back based solely off the 20 touches per game he should be receiving on the Pittsburgh Steelers. They took him in the first round for a reason. They want to make it a point of emphasis to really add a back that can do it all, and Naji Harris fits that bill to perfection. So anyways, with that being said, I'm going to actually be at the 102 here. And looking at the board, I'm not going to go obviously with a quarterback because, again, we mentioned one quarterback for super flexy value is just simply not there. The guys that I would really consider at this spot would actually be, personally for me, would be the next two in the tier 2 of the Superflex rankings for me, and that's going to be Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts. For simplicity's sake, I talk about Kyle Pitts so much. Let me just snag Jamar Chase here. And when you're talking about Jamar Chase, again, the writing's on the wall. They picked him at 5th overall despite needing a tackle severely. And he's Joe Burrow's #1 target out of college in 2019 when he was a 19-year-old sophomore breaking records in the SEC. They took this guy for a reason despite even having a decent receiving core. Jamar Chase doesn't care. Jamar Chase is going to be that alpha. Jamar Chase could very well see 110, 120 targets year 1. I'm absolutely stoked for this guy, and getting him here at the 102 I think is appropriate value in a one quarterback league.
Yeah, he's by far the most talented receiver in that receiving core, and that's no slight to T. Higgins. He's a talented receiver in his own right, but there's an alpha dog in town, and his name's Jamar Chase, and he's going to take the #1 receiver job by the balls and basically run away with it. So you talked about the kind of elite talents at the top of the board. We're not doing this from a team perspective, so we don't necessarily know if, like, for example, like needs play into this. Obviously, needs within a tier. You don't want to be just reaching for need, but I'm going to take Kyle Pitts here because I do think he is the third, he's honestly probably the most talented prospect in this class, but because of positional value, he is a tight end, so we can't probably take him over a guy like Naji Harris or a guy like Jamar Chase just because of that tight end designation. We know that he can do it all, right? He's a yak monster tight end. He can break the seams open. He can run routes like a big wide receiver. He is the complete package as far as the tight end prospect that I've ever seen. I know as far as you've ever seen. And he goes to a situation that has a competent quarterback, at least for the next couple of years. He's got Arthur Smith coming in, who really used Jonnu Smith in a variety of ways that get you kind of intrigued with the way that he could deploy Kyle Pitts. And we have potential looming uncertainty with Julio Jones's future in Atlanta as well. So if Julio, for some reason, is out of there in a year, maybe this year or a year from now, then you got a lot of vacated production, a big-time role to fill with Kyle Pitts potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. I mean, this is a guy as a rookie. You don't necessarily see players come in as rookies and be basically consensusly regarded as top 6 at their position. Kyle Pitts is doing right that, and I've seen multiple people even have him higher than that. I've seen people have him higher than Darren Waller, have him higher than George Kittle. And while I'm not at that point whatsoever, I think it makes sense what they're trying to argue, because if you're expecting that elite production, you're getting a 6-year, 7-year discount with Kyle Pitts being 21 versus those guys being older. Even though I wouldn't do it personally, if Kyle Pitts is able to become that type of level of a player, it's well worth even reaching on him. And 103 people may say is a reach, but if he ends up becoming that, he's going to give you one of the most difference-making values at a position that, quite frankly, lacks elite options. So I absolutely agree. Kyle Pitts is the 103 here. Would have been in consideration as well for my 102. That being said, I'm at the 104, and I'm going to snag your boy here. I'm going to snag both of our consensus RB2. That's going to be Travis Etienne. Again, we mentioned it. People are going to point at the Jacksonville landing spot, say, oh, James Robinson, like, what's he going to do? Oh, well, why did they take a running back? What are they doing? They took him for a reason. They saw exactly what we saw, and that's going to be a dynamic playmaker who can instantly add third down capable receiving skills, third down capability in general for a backfield that quite literally gave James Robinson run until he was basically about to drop down at the end of last season. It was pretty ridiculous to see that they just kind of handed the reins to a UDFA. New coaches in town. They drafted Travis Etienne to be that Aaron Jones type for their offense. And I think this guy, even as a rookie, can end up seeing 56 or 50, 55 type receptions. I honestly see that type of capabilities as he's learning in the NFL. And I think year 2 on specifically, we could see him develop into that 250 touch, Aaron Jones level efficiency type back. And if he's doing that, I mean, he's going to be a fringe top 12 overall option in Dynasty. So getting him here as the fourth skill position player off the board, I think is appropriate value.
Yeah, and if everybody believes in Trevor Lawrence the way that most people do, the Jacksonville Jaguars as an offense could take a big time step forward, right? If Trevor Lawrence is the next coming of Andrew Luck or the next coming of insert huge quarterback prospect, John Elway or whatever, then Trevor Lawrence is going to elevate the play of that offense. He's got his number one dude with him. And this is a guy that he fed the number one amount of receptions at the running back position in college football last year in a shortened season. So if Travis Etienne we have no questions basically about Travis Etienne's pass game usage because they've already instantly come out and said that's what his role is going to be early on. And we know his quarterback is definitely willing to throw him the ball because we saw it for 3+ years in college at Clemson. So yeah, Etienne is a guy that a lot of people are overthinking. A lot of people are dogging on the situation. Let all the value slip to you. If Travis Etienne is available in a one quarterback draft, anywhere past the 105, it's tremendous value in my opinion.
I fully agree. With that being said, I have a feeling who you're going to go at 106. So just take it away with, or 105. So just take it away with him.
Yeah, so to me, it's a toss-up between two guys, one being Javonte Williams from the Denver Broncos and the other being Devontae Smith from the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to go with Devontae Smith here just because I think from a talent perspective, he's a notch above what Javonte Williams is. Obviously, he had a historical college football season this last year, Heisman Trophy winning campaign. Comes into the league, he's a top 10 pick. The Eagles trade up for him. And really, we said it in the wide receiver rankings video. With a guy like Devontae Smith, what he brings to the table is the most fundamental thing that a receiver can bring to the table, but it's the thing that the Eagles have been sorely lacking, and that's a guy that can get open consistently, win versus man coverage. Matt Harmon's reception perception metrics for Devontae Smith are absolutely off the charts, and the guy's got freaking automatic hands too. So he's catching the ball, he's going to get open, he's got that dog mentality in him too. And all this guy needs is opportunity. And with Philadelphia, with a quarterback he's familiar with, who he went to college with for a year or two, he should be able to establish himself very quickly as the number one guy in that offense, in my opinion.
Yeah, I fully agree. Again, it would be a toss-up, in my opinion, between himself and Javonte Williams. But with Devonta Smith, you're getting a locked and loaded player who, in my opinion, I mentioned Jamar Chase maybe getting 120 targets as a rookie. If Devonta Smith doesn't get 120 targets, I will be shocked because the state of the receiving core just lends itself for Devonta Smith to step in as the most pro-ready receiver in this class and come in and dominate right away. You got Jalen Hurts. You need to give him a weapon, especially one that he's familiar with in 2018 at Alabama. Giving him Devonta Smith was the most ideal move they could have possibly done in the draft. And with that being said, he has to be the player here at 105. I totally agree here. Now,
their leading receivers last year were like Travis Fulgham and Jalen Reagor and freaking Greg Ward, and all of them had under 600 yards. And while I still have some hope for Jalen Reagor, even though he was a guy that I was a little lower on coming out, I think having a guy like Devontae Smith across from him is only gonna serve him to be a better player because he doesn't have any real pressure to be the number one receiver that they may have drafted him to be.
Yep, fully agree. And for the record, anybody who's watching at home, you do see the 4 rounds here. We're only really going to go 2 because it's a one quarterback league. We're going to be talking about the strategy portion because you guys have heard our player analysis in general. We're just kind of giving you a layout of where the quarterbacks would fit in. Anyways, also, we don't want it to be a 2-hour video, so thank us for that. That being said, at the 106 here, it's going to be Javonte Williams. You mentioned it was a toss-up for you between him and Devonta Smith. He was the next guy on that tier for me. And talking about Javonte Williams, this is a Denver Broncos team who traded up to the 35th overall pick to jump Miami to select this guy. That just speaks volumes to what they wanted from their backfield. I mean, we mentioned last year that duo of Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon in the ranking show. Phillip Lindsay is vacating roughly 13 opportunities a game. While it may not seem significant on the surface, Javonte Williams at 13 opportunities per game as a rookie is all you can really hope for. If he's showing out in those 13 opportunities, they're going to feel more than comfortable really leaning on him as that true bell cow back once Melvin Gordon is a UFA following the season. So I fully think that this guy starting in 2022 could be that prototypical 250, 300 touch back. And I can see him being in a similar vein to what we've seen from Josh Jacobs in recent years prior to the Kenyon Drake signing and being that low-end RB2, getting the work, contributing a little bit in the pass game, really being the identity of the rushing offense. I can see Javonte Williams absolutely blossoming into that type of role for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, and I think even as a rookie, you're looking at a guy that has legitimate RB2 type projections from a volume perspective and probably from an efficiency perspective as well. Cam Akers last year did not receive more than 14 opportunities in a single game until week 12. So there's a good chance that Javonte Williams maybe is like efficient on like maybe 8 to 10 touches a game early on. And we all know Melvin Gordon has a history of injuries. Let's not even get into that. But there's a good chance that the coaching staff will probably see that the guy's outperforming Melvin Gordon, who's been in the league for a number of years and is kind of wearing down as a player. It's just the nature of the running back position. That's just kind of how it works. And they might integrate this guy more into the offense with the anticipation that Melvin Gordon will be moving on in free agency and get him some chance to work as a full-time workhorse this year. And if nothing else, I said this on the RB video, but if nothing else, Javonte Williams' value can only go up from here, right? Because he's going to be a running back going into his second year with the incumbent starter now leaving in free agency. So even if Javonte Williams doesn't have the most spectacular rookie season from a statistical standpoint, he's a guy whose value is only going to increase as time goes on and as the situation gets clearer.
Yeah, fully. Again, we've mentioned multiple times that we shouldn't expect rational coaching. But this one's just labeled. They traded up for a second-round running back. Your current running back is 29 years old in the final year of his contract. I will probably bet anything that Melvin Gordon is not brought back next year. And even if he is, let's be honest, is a 30-year-old Melvin Gordon really going to chip away at a talented Javonte Williams that was picked in quite literally the top 5 of the second round? I absolutely don't think that would be the case. Anyways, off of Javonte Williams, because everybody who's watched the channel knows what we think of him as being that stud that he is. Who are you looking at here at the 7th overall pick?
Yeah, and you mentioned the strategy portion of this video. I would say that this is probably a tier break for me. After I think the first 3 guys was a tier break for me in terms of the guys that are safe volume projections, the elite talents in this class. Although I do think ETN was an elite talent in this class, he's a murkier volume projection than some of the guys ahead of him. So I think ETN, Devontae Smith, and Javonte Williams, however you want to slice it, is a next, like in a 1 quarterback draft, is another tier of player. So once you get past those guys, you're looking more at some of these other receivers like Rashad Bateman. You're looking at Jalen Waddle. You're looking potentially at some other positions as well, like Michael Carter. But to me, the clear 107 for me would be Rashad Bateman. He is my clear wide receiver 3, and I actually do have him in a similar tier to that of Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith. I've documented it numerous times. I think Lamar Jackson's a better passer than he's given credit for. And I think the fact that this dude has had absolutely 0 passing weapons to throw to at the receiver position, aside from Marquise Brown, who really is only a deep threat, can only accentuate his ability in the passing game and make him a more accurate quarterback, similar to the jump that we saw from Josh Allen last year and similar to the jump that I think we're also going to see from Daniel Jones this year with the additions of the weapons that he has to throw to as well. So Rashad Bateman to me is a guy, all he needs is opportunity, and he's got that with the Baltimore Ravens. They have a pretty murky wide receiver position right now with no real established weapons outside of their tight end and Mark Andrews. And even him, he's only a guy that's going to see about 90 to 100 targets as a tight end anyway. So this is an offense that is looking to pass the ball more. Greg Roman came out and said that immediately after the draft, and I think that starts with Rashad Bateman.
Yeah, I fully agree with the points you said. He's currently my 5, but that 3 to 5 range is all in the same tier. So if you prefer Bateman, I absolutely think that's a fine value for him. Anyways, we'll each kind of elaborate on the picks that we make from now on, because I noticed otherwise the video will probably be an hour long. So anyways, I'll just let you go off of your analysis of Rashad Bateman. I'm going to just take Jalen Waddle here, who is my wide receiver 3. And talk about Jalen Waddle. I mean, I talked about it multiple times on the rankings video, but the continuity that we're seeing with him being reunited with Tua Tagovailoa, the role that he should be filling as the slot Tua-dependent type option on that Miami Dolphins offense, I think it was probably the perfect transition spot for him going into the NFL. Being that 6th overall pick, getting the draft capital required, landing in a spot with Tua Tagovailoa, learning from a guy, Devontae Parker, who can play that prototypical X, and Will Fuller, who will be that deep threat on the Z position for this offense. I think you could just slide Jalen Waddle right into that slot position, let him work underneath, let him work his insane yards after catch ability, and he could be a guy who we can see develop into a quality high-end wide receiver 2 as soon as even next year, and possibly give you some upside games even this year. While I don't think he's going to be a wide receiver 1 potential that we might even see from a Chase or a Smith this year, given their landing spots, I think he can have enough quality games to give you very good output for this year. I can see this guy being a 90, 95 target guy, even as a rookie, to be honest. Anyways, with that being said, that's the 108. Who are you looking at 109 here?
Yeah, 109. I'm caught between two guys here. I'm caught between taking potentially the first quarterback off the board and the pick I'm going to make, which is my guy, Elijah Moore, wide receiver for the New York Jets. Elijah Moore, again, much like Rashad Bateman, much like Devontae Smith, he's in a position that has a lot of unknowns in the wide receiver core. And they got this guy at the 34th overall pick, and it seemed like they were absolutely ecstatic with that value. He was probably a guy that they were looking to pick with their 23rd overall pick before they ended up trading up with the Minnesota Vikings to get Elijah Vera Tucker. So I think Elijah Moore is in a situation where he's got a young quarterback coming in, and he is going to be his best friend. They're gonna come into the league together. They're gonna do rookie stuff together, rookie like bonding and stuff that these teams do. And Elijah Moore's ability underneath, the ability to get open quickly, be that slot receiver, play a bit on the outside. He can also stretch the field. He can pretty much do everything. He's a tough player. He's a smart player. He was super productive in his college career. There's just not a lot of red flags with this guy. And he's a guy that I'm just absolutely comfortable betting on, especially with the situation that I think they're building a nice culture and a nice foundation in New York with Joe Douglas right now.
Yeah, you guys all know our thoughts on Elijah Moore from the rankings process. And me and Corey are basically in sync. I fully agree that Elijah Moore is going to be that stud receiver. And he's currently my wide receiver 4. So I absolutely agree with that valuation at the 109. And with that being said, at the 110, you mentioned the tier break after Elijah Moore. This is going to be the first quarterback off the board. This is going to be our quarterback one consensusly, and that's going to be Trey Lance. I mean, the landing spot, perfection, mentioned on the quarterback rankings, an A- talent landing in an A+ landing spot is always going to be valued higher for us rather than an A+ quarterback landing in a B type landing spot that we see with Trevor Lawrence. Trey Lance has the rushing ability. He is that dynamic option that Kyle Shanahan has not had since 2012 when he just so happened to lead a rookie quarterback to the 3rd overall finish in fantasy football. And you mentioned the parallels in the tweet. You're probably going to put the tweet up, but he was picked after a generational prospect that year too. This is such an eerily similar situation to a guy who can do it all, spread the field, work his legs, work out a structure. Trey Lance is the guy that Kyle Shanahan has really been looking for since RG3 ended up unfortunately going down with that injury.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Trey Lance too is he's always been a guy that has been talked about as, man, look at the ceiling on this guy, right? And man, if anybody's going to get the ceiling out of him, it's going to be Kyle Shanahan. So with the 111, I'm caught between two picks here. I'm caught between my quarterback 2 and I'm caught between my running back 4. And I think I'm going to roll with the running back because it is a more important position in a one quarterback league. So I'm going to go with Michael Carter, running back for the New York Jets. Much like I said for Elijah Moore, I think the culture, the situation, the offense is really being built the right way in New York. I think Michael Carter was a value pick for the Jets. Robert Saleh said as much in his press conference that they were surprised that he was there. They finished day 2 of the draft just assuming he'd be picked, and he wasn't. And they were like, holy crap, this guy's still on the board. We got to go get him. He's got a real shot at winning that starting job. It's a very thin running back depth chart with Frank Gore, who was the incumbent starter last year, vacating a good majority, almost over 200 touches from that backfield. And Michael Carter has really only got to compete with like Tevin Coleman and LaMichael Pirine. And I think we can both agree he's the most talented running back in that backfield. Obviously, we got concerns somewhat long-term because he was a 4th-round pick, but I think for the short term, at least, he definitely has a good chance to win that job out. And I think he has the talent to at least hold on to it for a good bit long-term.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned you're caught between him and your quarterback 2. Well, our quarterback 2 is Trevor Lawrence. So I'm just going to snag up the generational quarterback prospect at the 12th overall spot. I mean, let's be honest here. This guy's an absolute stud. He is the best quarterback we have seen come out since Andrew Luck. And he has it all. 6'6", 220 pounds, works out of structure, has the requisite athleticism we work for, and one of the best arms we've seen come out in a while. This guy has shown, even since his true freshman season at Clemson, that he just knows what it takes to succeed. And if anybody's going to overcome, you mentioned a B- type landing spot, it's going to be the guy who everybody in their right mind really considers as that generational guy. So I fully agree. And I just noticed now it was set to snake. So let me just quickly make it linear, because if you're doing your rookie drafts in a snake order, don't. So with that being said, let me do that. And boom. But yeah, not much else to say about Trevor Lawrence. If you guys don't know who Trevor Lawrence is at this current juncture after he's just made the 1st overall pick, then I don't know what to tell you.
Yep, for sure. And with the 201, I took Naji Harris in the first round. I'm going to pretend like I'm building an actual team, and I took a running back in the first round. So if you're in that position, you got Naji Harris, you just lock down one of your running back slots, either your RB1 or your RB2 for the next couple of years at minimum. And I'm looking at a guy that I actually think I'm going to make my wide receiver 6. In our wide receiver rankings video, I had De'Ami Brown as my wide receiver 6. But the more and more I think about it, man, give me Terrace Marshall. I think he's going to be my wide receiver 6 pretty soon here. Yeah, he was my 8 in the video when we did the wide receiver rankings video, but I've done a little bit more research on it, and I just think, yeah, he probably won't be very productive his rookie season because Robbie Anderson is still there. He's still under contract for this year, but I think as soon as Robbie Anderson is gone, which is next year, this guy's going to slide right in. I think the Panthers were absolutely stunned that he was on the board where they picked at 58 or whatever they got him. And they have long-term plans to make this guy the complement to DJ Moore, who we know is very capable of getting underneath and making things happen after the catch. Well, now you have the guy that's going to stretch the field for Sam Darnold, for whoever their quarterback is going forward.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Again, he is my wide receiver 7. There's only one current player on the board that I would take over him. So I think that value is very appropriate. You mentioned the overall upside this guy has. You kind of had question marks about his overall game. He wasn't really the most polished guy coming out of school. Well, he did play behind, a guy who just set records at the receiver position last year and this year's 5th overall pick. So if you're wondering why he may not be the most polished, it's kind of hard to really separate yourself when you got those guys in front of you. When you're talking about Terrace Marshall, he's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the downfield ability, he's got the potential to play big slot if you need him to in a pinch. I think he's a really versatile piece in the offense, being able to play in those positions, whether it's the big slot, whether it's the X position. I think he can be a really, really good fantasy football option. Maybe not this year, but particularly when Robbie Anderson is gone after his contract runs out following the year, Terrace Marshall slides in as that wide receiver 2 behind DJ Moore. Getting him here at the 201 in a 1 quarterback league is very good value in my opinion.
He could be like everyone's talking about this year's Justin Jefferson, and everyone kind of labels Rashad Bateman that guy. It wouldn't shock me if it was Justin Jefferson's former teammate because he's in a great situation. He's really in the same type of situation that Justin Jefferson was in last year, right? Because Justin Jefferson was not expected to be the number 1 because they had Adam Thielen. Well, we have Terrace Marshall in a situation where he's not expected to be the number 1. He could very well come out and absolutely light it up. And while I had some concerns with him pre-draft, I think a year to be the wide receiver 3 in the offense and learn behind DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson will serve him well. He just needs to get a little bit more fluid, a little bit more polished, and a little bit more nuanced. If he can do that, and I think they have a great coaching staff there in Carolina to help him do that. So if anybody's going to basically develop a raw receiver like Terrace Marshall, I think Carolina is the team to do it.
Yep, I absolutely agree. And I mentioned that he was my wide receiver 7. I'm just going to snag my wide receiver 6 now, and that's going to be, where is he? De'Ami Brown of the Washington football team. What? A Cowboys fan taking a Washington football team receiver? This is going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick's downfield guy. You got Terry McLaurin operating at all 3 levels of the field. You got Curtis Samuel really operating as that gimmicky gadget / first level guy. He's probably going to be using multiple facets of the game. De'Ami Brown is going to be the true deep threat of a Ryan Fitzpatrick offense. And we have seen over the years, guys like Mike Evans, guys like Deshaun Jackson, guys like Devontae Parker, even to a degree last year, while he wasn't as good as the year before, he was still a relevant player. I think he had like 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. If De'Ami Brown is put into a situation where Ryan Fitzpatrick could force feed him the ball down the field, which Ryan Fitzpatrick, as we've seen multiple times over his career, absolutely loves to do, he's got the talent to be able to produce at a significant level. So getting him here at the 202 for a guy, in my opinion, could be a sneaky 850-yard type guy, even as a rookie in this situation, I think would be a slam dunk type of value. And I think his value would only go up from where it is currently at because people are kind of lower on him. Like I've seen multiple mock drafts, albeit super flex, where he's going at that late 2nd, early 3rd round area. At that point, I mean, come on, guys. You know better than that. Don't be taking freaking like Kadarius Toney over him. Like just stop that.
Yep, for sure. I'm not going to take Kadarius Toney right now. What I am going to do is take my quarterback 3. And that's I'm going to take Zach Wilson right here because he's my quarterback 3.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Not Justin Fields, but Zach Wilson, I mean, copy and paste everything I said about the Jets situation to Zach Wilson. He's going to fit into that Mike LaFleur scheme like an absolute glove. He can work outside of structure. I've heard a million people call him Aaron Rodgers before. I'm not sure how much credence that is. Even I haven't called him that, and he was a guy that I absolutely loved pre-draft. But he does have Aaron Rodgers type ability, and we've seen the type of ascension that Aaron Rodgers was able to make at this late point in his career when he shifted to a scheme that Mike LaFleur's brother ran.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I mean, Zach Wilson, albeit he's not my quarterback 3, he's my quarterback 4. I think this is appropriate value because, to be honest, you'll see in my next pick, this is about the range where you take these last of the elite quarterbacks because the skill position players you would prefer over these quarterbacks are drying out right now. And Zach Wilson is absolutely appropriate with this pick. You pair a team with a Kyle Pitts and a Zach Wilson. I think that's a really good young quote-unquote duo for the future. Anyways, that being said, you mentioned
you're going to be doing it in one of our leagues.
Yeah, there you go. Very nice, except that's even a super flex, so you're big chilling.
Yep.
But yeah, with that being said, at the 204, I'm going to take my third-ranked quarterback, and you guys all know at this point, Justin Fields. I mean, the value cutoff at the skill positions just isn't there, as I mentioned with Corey. Justin Fields, elite rushing upside, elite athlete, lands in a spot where he does have a number one receiver, a good young tight end, a couple young intriguing options to really build around. While he may not be the most polished passer coming out, Kylo Murray, as I mentioned in the rankings video, was the quarterback 3 this year. Quarterback 3 with 3,900 passing yards and only 26 passing touchdowns. You don't need to be elite as a passer year 1 to have a significant impact because that's how much the rushing game truly affects a quarterback's output at this current state of the quarterback position in fantasy football. So I will absolutely take him here at the 204 and not even think twice about it.
Yep. And all 4 of the quarterbacks that we talked about have rushing ability to some degree, Lance and Fields being more advanced than Lawrence and Wilson, but they can all do it to a pretty decent degree. And actually, I saw Move the Sticks is doing Zach Wilson 360 where they talk to like his high school coaches and his BYU
I saw that
coaches.
for Lawrence today.
Yeah, and they're doing it for Zach Wilson. And one of the BYU coaches actually said that Zach Wilson is the best athlete he's ever seen. I was like, okay, that's a little shocking to me because he's a good athlete. I would even say he's a great athlete for the quarterback position, but maybe there's some untapped potential there because he had 10 rushing touchdowns last year. And when you watched him run, he looked a little like Kyler Murray. Like maybe he's a better athlete than I'm giving him credit for. I don't think he's quite the athlete Kyler Murray is, freaking dual sport star Kyler Murray. But I do think he's a better athlete than a lot of people are giving him credit for. So with that being said, I'm going to go dip into the receiver pool again. And I'm going to take Rondell Moore, wide receiver from the Arizona Cardinals, who is an interesting fit. He's a guy that I would say has some risk associated with him because he's a guy that is going to need to be scheme touches, at least at first, because he's not a complete prospect. He has not a lot of experience playing downfield. He was mostly used around the line of scrimmage at Purdue. Could have been because of quarterback play at Purdue, but nonetheless, that is how he was used. He does have some limitations, and I think Cliff Kingsbury should be able to really accentuate Rondell Moore's game, and they don't really have a weapon like Rondell Moore in that offense. The closest thing to Rondell Moore, to be honest, is their running back Chase Edmonds.
I was about to say that. Yeah, the closest thing they have to Rondell Moore is Chase Edmonds. And the thing that you didn't even mention is Cliff Kingsbury, I talked about in the rankings video, has run 548 plays with 4+ wide receivers on the field. The next closest team in the NFL has ran 161. They will find a way to use this guy. They will find a way to get the ball in his hands. And again, you mentioned 205. I think that's perfect value for him. This is about where I would rank him. And he was my best overall available player on the board. So great pick there. Pair him up in this quote unquote scenario with Devonta Smith. I think that's a really good type of duo. At the 106 here, I'm caught really between these top 2 guys. It's close, but I'll trust the talent that I saw with Amari St. Brown. He was my wide receiver 7 pre-draft. I really like what I saw. Lands in a spot, albeit without the draft capital we anticipated. Lands in a spot where there's so many available targets for him to really succeed up in Detroit. I mean, you're mentioning a wide receiver core of Quintez Cephas, Tyrell Williams, Rashad Bateman. The only real consistent force that they have is running back DeAndre Swift and tight end TJ Hawkinson. There are going to be so many targets available for this guy, and I think this is the most talented receiver on their roster, even though he only has that 4th-round draft capital to his name. I'm willing to take him a little bit higher than maybe a typical 4th-rounder should go, but that's how much I believe in the player. That's how much I believe in the opportunity, so I'm going to take him here.
Yeah, and I think the high-end projection for a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown is what Jared Goff was comfortable with in Los Angeles, right? I think if Amon-Ra St. Brown turned into a Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp type of player, that's probably his ceiling, but I also do think he has that kind of potential to be that guy that can really do everything on the field, but isn't like elite in one area, because that's really the type of player that Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp are. And I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to get in Jared Goff's good graces pretty early in his career. So you mentioned the other guy that you were caught between. That's the player I'm going to take right now, and that's Trey Sermon, running back for the San Francisco 49ers. I actually just took this guy in our Listener League startup. I can't remember what round it was. I think it was like the 10th round or something like that. Ninth round, maybe. Yeah. He's a guy that we've kind of outlined the concerns with. Obviously, we're not picking him as high as most other people probably are. And the reason being is because of Kyle Shanahan's tendencies with running backs, how he deploys them. He, generally speaking, just uses running backs for specific roles. And if Trey Sermon is able to carve out a feature role, he will definitely be the most valuable running back from that backfield. But we don't think he has the ceiling necessarily to be a 70+% opportunity share running back that some people might be kind of projecting or visualizing and hoping that he can be.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Again, you got to respect the draft capital, which is why he's off the board here. But don't get carried away. Don't be taking this guy in your first round, even early second round, because he's just not the talent to be able to really require that type of capital. There are just so many guys, especially the ones that we even listed here, that we would take over him. So, and
he's got good running backs in his backfield to compete with too. With Raheem Mostert, who's always been a good running back. Jeff Wilson, low key, pretty decent running back, and the guy they took in the 6th round, Elijah Mitchell, I think is also a talented player. So
who's
Kyle Shanahan's got his Rolodex of running backs, and he's going to fire them out one by one.
Yeah, and the guy that they took in the 6th round actually had a higher grade for both of us than him. Yeah. So, big yikes. But anyways, that being said, at the 208 here, let me just check my board. I believe the highest player I have is Kadarius Toney at this point. Yeah, so the highest player I left on the board here, I know I made fun of him earlier with the Amari Brown, but I'm going to take Kadarius Toney here. I'm not a huge fan of him. Didn't really have the production profile required, but giving this guy the benefit of the doubt, he was good this year for Florida, really operating as that number 2 weapon behind Kyle Pitts in a very functional offense. And the Giants have a plan for him. They didn't take him at 19th or 20th overall, wherever they took him, to not use him. He's going to be that Sterling Shepard replacement once Sterling Shepard's contract is done after this year. I think he can end up developing into a really solid slot type option. And if this guy develops into a Curtis Samuel level output in the NFL, which I think Curtis Samuel is a top 25 type receiver this year, if he ends up developing into anything close on that, investing that mid to late 2nd round pick in him is great value in my opinion. So I will take him here. Kadarius Toney, 208. Got to respect that draft capital he raises up.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that are just totally out on him too. So there's a chance you're going to see guys like you can see on the board right now. You're going to see guys like freaking Dwayne Eskridge and Amari Rogers and stuff going over Kadarius Toney. I'll take Kadarius Toney every day over those guys, just because I did see flashes of the talent at Florida. I did see the ability that people that were high on Toney liked, and I also did see them take him in the 1st round, which is important and it bears weight. So the next pick that I'm going to go with is, I think this is a tier break where you picked Kadarius Toney. So I'm going to take the final quarterback off the board, and I'm going to take Mac Jones, quarterback from the New England Patriots. We've already compared him on numerous occasions. He's got basically a 3-level projection to me. I think his floor is Derek Carr, his mid-level is Kirk Cousins, and his ceiling is Matt Ryan. So if you want to look at him that way, he's never going to be a dual threat elite fantasy quarterback like Deshaun Watson or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, but he can absolutely be the point guard for an efficient offense that leads him to have like a 35 touchdown, 10 pick season where he has, 4,300 yards type of output as a quarterback in the NFL. And if what we're hearing is true about Mac Jones and that he's like an elite mind at the quarterback position, who knows? He could even turn into more than that.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. This is the proper value for him in a 1 quarterback, in my opinion. There's no real skill positions that would jump at you saying, yo, you have to take him over Mac Jones. This is the appropriate spot for him after Toney. Anyways, with that being said, at the 210 here, looking at my board, the next available guy I have is actually going to be Nico Collins out of my favorite team, the Michigan Wolverines. I ended up getting that 3rd round draft capital with the Houston Texans. Let me just link him up right here. And with Nico Collins, I will admit, he's more of a project type player. He wasn't necessarily a refined option at Michigan. Didn't really have a season where he completely flashed out. But in spurts, man, this guy looked like an absolute dominant force. And you're mentioning the size that he has, 6'4", 212 pounds, speed, 4.41, really good downfield ability, really honestly underrated in my opinion after the catch. This guy is just a dynamic weapon and lands in a situation in Houston where he can develop into that wide receiver 2 very soon. Because after Brandon Cooks quite literally, that offense is an absolute dumpster fire with Will Fuller leaving. If Nico Collins is able to take that role, maybe develop into that wide receiver 2 behind Brandon Cooks, who knows? He may end up being the wide receiver 1, given the fact that Brandon Cooks literally has a concussion basically every other day you talk to him. I absolutely love Nico Collins, and while he may not be a ready-made producer year 1, I think year 2 on, he could be an absolute dynamite fantasy football force. So I will take him here at the 210 and not think twice about it.
Yeah, and he strikes me as a guy that is going to be a big-time guy that I'm targeting next year. Like after he has his down rookie season, which is probably likely given the raw skill set that he had coming out of Michigan. But people are just going to write him off and forget about him, which I think is going to be a mistake for those people because he's a guy that I definitely think could be a great buy low target after this year, especially if Houston's just an absolute dumpster fire with like Watson getting suspended and like Davis Mills is like starting games. Like I think Nico Collins is a prime buy low target at that point. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think he has definitely a big ceiling, and we're just going to have to see what happens with him because he's a raw prospect, but he's got the tools and he's got the athleticism, much like his teammate Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I think kind of got squashed by Anthony Schwartz's selection, but I still have faith in him too. So the 211 on the board right now, and I'm going to take, I guess he's kind of a my guy right now. I'm going to take Josh Palmer. And the reason I'm going to take Josh Palmer is because of the available players on the board right now. Yes, Amari Rogers is also a guy that's tied to an elite quarterback, who I think Justin Herbert is going to become an elite quarterback if he isn't already one. But Amari Rogers got a bit of an up and down situation. One, as a player, I wasn't the biggest fan of his film. And two, Aaron Rodgers is throwing temper tantrums galore, and who the hell knows if he's even going to be the quarterback of that team. So I'm going to take Josh Palmer, a guy that's projected to be tied to Justin Herbert for the next couple of years. They used a 3rd-round pick on this guy, and they have often injured, somewhat inconsistent, and not really that productive Mike Williams in a contract year this year. So if Josh Palmer is able to come in this year and learn behind Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and step into the wide receiver 2 role as early as next year, I think that's a great fit if he's able to, show some development throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, a great talent. Didn't really get to showcase it at Tennessee, but you mentioned the landing spot with LA Chargers. If he gets any type of significant playing time whatsoever, we saw Jalen Guyton. We saw, who's the other random receiver?
Tyron Johnson, I think.
Tyron Johnson. Yeah. Have games with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is just that level of a quarterback, and Josh Palmer is far more talented than either of those guys. So if he gets any type of opportunity, I would absolutely watch out for him. So I think 211 is appropriate. And at the 212 here, I'm actually going to be taking the second tight end off the board. I just see Hunter Long as such a lock for next year. While I don't think he's going to contribute much maybe this year behind Mike Gesicki, not really going to be a high-functioning, high-attacking, high-point potential type offense, they're not going to be bringing back Mike Gesicki this year. Why would you draft a guy as talented as Hunter Long in the 3rd round who has starting capabilities only to sign Mike Gesicki for significant capital?
And it was probably the most productive tight end in this class, not named Kyle Pitts, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're mentioning Hunter Long. He's got really good athleticism. He produced well at Boston College, good downfield ability in a wide receiver core where you have Jalen Waddle as the guy that you're going to build around. You have Devontae Parker playing that X. But aside from that, they don't really have true targets to absorb real volume in this offense. I think Hunter Long can take the Mike Gesicki role and maybe even be more efficient than what we saw Mike Gesicki really perform this year. So I fully agree. 212 is going to be the spot where he goes off.
Yeah, and you have clear out options, right? Because you got Jalen Waddle clearing out the horizontal aspect of the field and Will Fuller clearing out the deep aspect of the field. You need an over the middle target, and Hunter Long can absolutely be that, assuming they re-sign Will Fuller, which I personally think they will, because I think Fuller's a tremendous Fuller's a tremendous talent, and I think he's going to show that this year. And I think a lot of people are just down on him for no reason.
Yep, I fully agree. So with that being said, that will be the 2 rounds for today's video. We're not going to go much more in depth. We're already at about 44 minutes in length. If you guys enjoyed this one quarterback style mock draft, a video that we really haven't brought out in a while on the channel, make sure you leave the thumbs up. And heck, I know I'm finished my wine, but if you made it this far in the video, comment down below some wine, because why not drink a wine on a Thursday night? Am I right? But with that being said, peace out, y'all. We'll see you on Saturday and Sunday. We're going to be doing even more mock draft style content. We're going to be rating your dynasty teams on Saturday and doing a startup mock draft on Sunday. So stay tuned. We're going to be getting involved with you guys as always. Peace out, y'all.
Peace.